Stoicism is exposing narcissists, ladies and gentlemen. Today we gather to shed light on a subject that resonates deeply with so many of us. It's about wisdom, virtue, and the ultimate philosophy that sees through all illusions. We live in a world where appearances often take precedence over authenticity, where manipulation sometimes masquerades as charisma, and where selfishness can hide behind a mask of generosity. But there's a shift happening, a philosophical awakening, where the truth is rising to the surface. Stoicism is exposing narcissists. This isn't just about calling out behaviors, it's about understanding the philosophical reality at play. It's about recognizing the work of a timeless wisdom that cannot tolerate deception forever. Narcissists may thrive in their craft for a season, but their lies, pride, and manipulations are no match for the truth of Stoic principles. Tonight we'll unpack what this exposure means for them, and for us we'll reflect on how Stoic wisdom always finds its way into the darkest places, how philosophy becomes a shield for the oppressed, and how this moment of revelation is as much about accountability as it is about transformation. So as we dive into this powerful message, I urge you to open your minds, sharpen your discernment, and trust in the philosophy that helps us see all, judge all, and reveal all. The time for hiding is over, and the time for truth is here. The light of reason always reveals the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a dark room. In that space, you can't see the objects around you, the furniture or even the walls that contain you. But the moment you strike a match or flip a switch, everything changes. The light fills the room, revealing everything that was hidden. That's what happens when Stoic wisdom begins to work. Its light shines into the shadows, exposing what we couldn't see before. Today we're talking about how Stoicism is exposing narcissists. And the first thing we need to understand is this: the light of reason always reveals the truth. Narcissists thrive in the dark. They operate in secrecy, weaving webs of manipulation, deceit, and self-interest. They often project confidence, charm, and authority, but behind the facade lies a deeply rooted insecurity and an insatiable hunger for control. Their power depends on staying hidden, hidden motives, hidden intentions, and hidden truths about who they really are. But you see, Stoicism doesn't work in the dark. It is light, and where it moves, darkness cannot remain. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, look within, into the nature of things. No kind of action should be undertaken without reference to a rational principle. This means that no matter how well someone hides their true nature, no matter how long they've been able to manipulate and deceive, Stoic insight will eventually shine on them. And when it does, it's impossible to go back into hiding. Consider the stories we find in history. Think of Nero before his downfall. Nero was a man of pride, persecuting others and seeking power through destruction. But his own Stoic teacher, Seneca, recognized the truth of who he was, which led to Seneca's eventual withdrawal from court. It was uncomfortable, even painful, but necessary. Philosophical clarity doesn't just reveal the narcissist's flaws, it reveals the path to better living. Similarly, when Stoicism exposes narcissists today, it isn't just to punish, it's to bring truth into the open, and that truth has a dual purpose. First, it liberates those who have been oppressed, manipulated, or controlled by narcissistic behavior. The victims, often weighed down by confusion and self-doubt, suddenly see things clearly. They realize they were never the problem. The second purpose is accountability. The narcissist is confronted with the truth of their actions and must face the consequences now. Let's be real. This process isn't always immediate. Stoic transformation is perfect, but it doesn't always align with our desire for instant justice. Narcissists may seem to get away with their behavior for months, years, or even decades. But remember this: every lie has an expiration date. Every manipulative act is on borrowed time. When the light begins to expose, it often starts small, like a crack in a wall, letting in the first beam of sunlight, the slip of the tongue, an inconsistency in their story, or a moment of weakness might reveal a glimpse of the truth over time. those cracks widen and the full extent of their behavior comes to light. This process can be messy, but it is philosophical for those affected by narcissists. This exposure can feel like a breath of fresh air. Suddenly, you're no longer suffocating under the weight of their manipulation. The truth empowers you to reclaim your identity, your voice, and your freedom. Stoic wisdom doesn't just reveal, it restores. But for the narcissist, exposure is humbling. Epictetus says, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Stoicism allows them to fall, not out of cruelty, but because the truth is necessary for transformation. Some will double down, refusing to acknowledge their wrongdoing, but others may finally recognize the damage they've caused and seek transformation. So what can we do while waiting for Stoic wisdom to reveal the truth first? Trust in its timing. Understand that philosophy sees every struggle, hears every lament, and knows every injustice. Second, stay in the light yourself. Don't let bitterness or anger pull you into the darkness. Instead, hold on to Stoic truth and let it guide you. The exposure of narcissists is a testament to philosophical justice, but it's also a call for us to remain vigilant. The light that reveals the truth in others also shines on us. Are we walking in integrity? Are we living honestly? Stoic wisdom spares no one, but in its illumination we find freedom, healing, and the unshakable power of truth. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen, darkness can never overcome light, and when Stoicism decides to shine its light, no shadow can hide, and no lie can survive. The truth will always prevail. The battle between ego and virtue. Ladies and gentlemen, the heart of every narcissist struggle lies in one simple word: ego. It's the driving force behind their actions, the foundation of their manipulations, and the fuel for their need to control others. Ego demands to be fed, constantly seeking validation, power, and adoration. But standing in stark opposition to ego is virtue, a quality Stoicism calls us to embrace when these two forces meet. Ego and virtue, it's not just a clash of personalities, it's a philosophical battle. Natural law will always tip the scales in favor of virtue. Narcissists thrive on pride. They elevate themselves, believing they are untouchable, flawless, and above correction. In their minds, virtue is weakness, an enemy to their carefully constructed image. But what they fail to realize is this Stoicism doesn't operate on their terms. Seneca teaches us it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. When pride becomes a person's identity, they are setting themselves up for a fall, because nature will not allow ego to triumph indefinitely. Ego craves control. It seeks to dominate conversations, relationships, and circumstances. Narcissists often manipulate others, making everything about themselves. But virtue, in contrast, releases control. It recognizes that life isn't about self-exaltation, but about right action and living according to nature. While ego says, "Look at me, worship me, serve me," virtue says, "How can I help? How can I live with honor? How can I reflect wisdom?" Let's reflect on history for a moment. Think about the story of Alexander the Great. He was a king consumed by pride. Believing his greatness was his own doing, he conquered vast territories and declared himself divine. But what happened next? His empire fragmented after his death, his legacy diminished, and his conquests proved ephemeral. That's what happens when ego refuses to bow to virtue. Nature steps in and sets the record straight. This same principle applies to narcissists in our world today. They may appear untouchable for a time, gaining power, recognition, and influence, but their ego cannot stand against the virtue Stoicism demands. When Stoicism exposes a narcissist, it doesn't just strip away their facade, it confronts their pride head-on. This exposure is often painful because it forces them to see the truth. They are not in control. They are not all-powerful, and their worth isn't tied to their image or achievements. For those of us affected by narcissists, the battle between ego and virtue is deeply personal. Their ego often clashes with our attempts to stay principled, patient, and kind. It's easy to feel frustrated or even defeated when their pride seems to win out. But here's where philosophy becomes our anchor. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. When we choose virtue, we align ourselves with natural law, trusting that it will ultimately prevail. Virtue isn't weakness, it's strength under control. It takes more strength to stay silent in the face of a narcissist's accusations than to retaliate. It takes more courage to walk away from their manipulation than to engage in their games. But the beauty of virtue is that it frees us, while the narcissist is trapped by their ego, constantly needing to prove themselves. Virtue allows us to rest in the assurance that living according to nature is enough. And let's not forget, Stoicism often uses exposure to teach lessons not just to the narcissist, but also to those around them when their pride is brought low. It serves as a powerful reminder of the danger of letting ego take the driver's seat in our own lives. We're called to examine ourselves, to ask, am I walking in virtue or am I letting pride creep in? The battle isn't just external, it's internal too. So what can we learn from this battle between ego and virtue? First, we must trust that nature sees and acts. No ego, no matter how inflated, can stand before natural law. Second, we must strive to embody virtue in our own lives, even when it's challenging. Finally, we must remember that natural justice is perfect. It humbles the proud, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, offering them an opportunity to change. Ladies and gentlemen, pride may roar loudly, but virtue whispers with strength. Narcissists may exalt themselves, but philosophy is the one who lifts and lowers, who rewards the virtuous and humbles the proud in the end. Ego cannot stand in the presence of virtue, and in the presence of wisdom, only truth prevails. The consequences of deception. Deception is the currency of narcissists. They thrive on falsehoods, weaving intricate webs of lies to manipulate, control, and elevate themselves above others. But what they fail to understand is that every lie, no matter how cleverly constructed, comes with consequences. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane when it comes to deception. This truth is inescapable. No facade lasts forever, no scheme goes unnoticed, and no manipulation escapes natural consequence. The consequences of deception are inevitable. Narcissists build their lives on illusion. They create an image of perfection, crafting a persona that hides their insecurities and flaws. They manipulate relationships, exploiting others for personal gain, while presenting themselves as the victim or the hero. Their lies often appear seamless, convincing even to those who know them well, but while they may fool people for a time, they cannot fool nature. Epictetus declares, if you want to improve, begin by accepting the way things are. Stoic wisdom is rooted in truth, and when reality decides to act, deception is always exposed. One of the most striking examples of the consequences of deception can be found in the story of Alcibiades in ancient Athens. This charismatic figure deceived both Athens and Sparta, playing both sides for his own gain, claiming loyalty to whoever suited him at the moment. His deception was calculated, but ultimately both sides recognized his treachery. His lie wasn't just a betrayal of others, it was a betrayal of truth itself. The result was exile and eventually assassination, as a powerful demonstration that society does not tolerate prolonged deceit. Now, while consequences in our world may not always be as immediate or dramatic, the principle remains the same. Deception cannot endure. Narcissists often believe they are above consequences, but their lies eventually unravel. Sometimes this happens through their own arrogance, They become so confident in their ability to manipulate that they make mistakes. Other times, their web of lies becomes so tangled that it collapses under its own weight. And sometimes natural law steps in directly, shining its light into their darkness, revealing the truth for all to see. But the consequences of deception are not just external, they're internal as well. A life built on lies is a life devoid of peace. Narcissists may appear confident and self-assured, but inside they are often restless and fearful. They live in constant anxiety, knowing that the truth could come out at any moment. Their need to maintain control over their narrative consumes them, leaving them unable to experience genuine joy or connection. For the victims of narcissistic deception, the consequences are equally profound. Lies erode trust, causing confusion and emotional pain. Many people manipulated by narcissists find themselves questioning their own reality, wondering if they're to blame for the harm they've endured. But here's the good news. Stoicism not only exposes the deceiver, but it also heals the broken-hearted. Seneca promises sometimes even to live is an act of courage when deception is uncovered. It brings freedom to those who have been trapped in its grasp. The exposure of deception also serves as a wake-up call for the narcissist. It's an opportunity to confront their actions and seek transformation. Stoic exposure isn't meant to destroyed, but to correct. However, this requires humility, something narcissists often resist. They have a choice: repent and turn toward the truth, or persist in their lies and face even greater consequences for the rest of us. These moments of exposure remind us of the importance of living in truth. Deception, even in small forms, has a way of growing and entangling us. Stoicism calls us to integrity, to live honestly before ourselves and others. Epictetus declares, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Truth brings freedom, while deception brings bondage. So what can we do when confronted with the consequences of deception? First, we must trust in natural justice. It may take time, but truth always prevails. Second, we must guard our hearts against bitterness when lies are exposed. It's easy to focus on the harm done, but healing comes when we release that pain to philosophical understanding. Finally, we must commit to living lives of honesty, allowing Stoic wisdom to guide us in every decision. Ladies and gentlemen, deception may offer short-term gain, but it always brings long-term loss. Lies may elevate someone for a season, but they cannot sustain them forever. In the end, the consequences of deception are a testament to philosophy's unwavering commitment to truth. No matter how intricate the web, no matter how convincing the lie, nature sees all, knows all, and will bring all things to light. The role of philosophy in overcoming manipulation. Manipulation is one of the most insidious tools in a narcissist's arsenal. It works subtly, weaving doubt, confusion, and emotional turmoil into the lives of those they target. Often, manipulation is not just about control. It's about undermining another person's sense of self-worth and autonomy. For those entangled in the narcissist's web, breaking free can feel almost impossible. But here's the truth. Stoicism has given us a powerful tool to combat manipulation. That tool is philosophy. Philosophy focused on natural law, reason, and virtue empowers us to overcome the grasp of manipulation and reclaim our peace, purpose, and freedom. Philosophy begins with understanding what is truly within our control. Narcissists thrive on creating chaos and uncertainty, often making their victims feel powerless or trapped. But Stoicism is not a philosophy of confusion or fear. It is a philosophy of order, clarity, and strength. Epictetus tells us, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." When faced with manipulation, it's crucial to remember this truth. The manipulator's goal is to make you doubt yourself, but philosophy anchors you in unchanging principles. Your mind is your own, your judgments are your own, and your choices are your own. One of the most profound aspects of philosophy is its ability to illuminate the truth. Narcissistic manipulation often works by distorting reality, twisting facts, rewriting history, or blaming others for their actions. This tactic, often called gaslighting, leaves victims questioning their own perceptions and even their sanity. But philosophy provides clarity. Epictetus says, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters." Through reflection, reason, and the application of Stoic principles, we discern what is true and what is false. We equip ourselves to see through the manipulations and recognize the tactics for what they are. Philosophy also gives us the strength to set boundaries. Narcissists push against boundaries, testing limits, and often using guilt or fear to make others comply with their demands. Without philosophical grounding, it can feel overwhelming to stand firm against these tactics. But when we trust in Stoic principles, we find the courage to say no to manipulation. Marcus Aurelius says, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." While the narcissist isn't evil, their manipulative behaviors often align with destructive and divisive tactics. By embracing Stoicism and standing firm in philosophical truth, we resist the manipulative hold they try to exert over our lives. It's important to acknowledge that overcoming manipulation is rarely a quick process. Narcissists are skilled at creating dependency, making their victims feel as though they need the narcissist for validation, approval, or even survival. Breaking free requires patience, reflection, and persistence. Philosophy sustains us during this process. Seneca encourages us. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. While we wait for reason to prevail, whether through exposing the manipulator, opening doors for freedom, or bringing healing, we can lean on philosophical strength to endure. Philosophy also helps us heal from the wounds of manipulation. Narcissistic manipulation doesn't just control actions, it damages self-esteem, trust, and emotional well-being. Many victims carry scars long after the manipulator is no longer in their lives, but Stoicism is a healer. Marcus Aurelius reminds us the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Through philosophy we can bring our pain to reason, trusting it to mend the broken pieces of our hearts. Healing may take time, but it is always possible with philosophical understanding. Another critical aspect of philosophy is forgiveness. Now, let's be clear, forgiveness does not mean excusing the manipulator's behavior or allowing them back into your life. Forgiveness is about releasing the hold that anger, resentment, or bitterness may have over your heart. Seneca advises, "Shall I be angry with someone because his judgment is faulty?" When we forgive, we're not saying that what the narcissist did was right. Instead, we're choosing to free ourselves from the emotional chains their actions have placed on us. Philosophy also reminds us that we don't have to fight these battles alone. Narcissistic manipulation often isolates its victims, making them feel like they have no one to turn to. But the Stoic tradition is always with us, Seneca assures us. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach through study, discourse with other philosophers, and community with fellow seekers. We can find support, encouragement, and strength. Surrounding ourselves with people who reflect philosophical values helps counteract the loneliness and isolation. Manipulation creates philosophy, gives us a vision for what lies beyond the manipulation. Narcissists often work to keep their victims focused on immediate fears or anxieties, distracting them from the bigger picture. But philosophy lifts our eyes to greater principles, reminding us that our worth, identity, and future are secure in our own virtue and character. Marcus Aurelius declares, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." When we hold on to this promise, we can move forward with confidence, knowing that the manipulator's influence is temporary, but our philosophical purpose is eternal. Philosophy empowers us to trust in natural justice. Manipulation often feels like an injustice, and it's natural to want to see the manipulator held accountable. But Epictetus reminds us, an ignorant person is inclined to blame others for his own misfortune. Give him a teaching and he will find cause for blaming himself. Philosophy assures us that nature sees every act of manipulation, every lie and every hurtful word in its perfect timing. It will bring justice. Ladies and gentlemen, overcoming manipulation requires more than human strength. It requires philosophy, illuminates the truth, strengthens our resolve, heals our wounds, and reminds us of rational principles. Through philosophy, we can break free from the grip of manipulation and step into the freedom, peace, and purpose that Stoicism promises us. So, if you're facing manipulation today, let me encourage you. Lean into philosophy, trust that reason is working even when you can't see it, stand firm in its truth, knowing that nature is your ally, and hold on to hope. Because with wisdom, no situation is beyond redemption, and no battle is ever fought without principle. Restoration and healing through Stoic practice. When Stoicism exposes narcissism and their manipulative actions, the aftermath can feel like a storm has passed, but left behind broken pieces. For those impacted by their behavior, whether in personal relationships, workplaces, or even within families, the exposure of truth is both liberating and deeply painful. It reveals the betrayal, the lies, and the manipulation that may have been endured for years. Yet, in the midst of this brokenness, there is hope. Restoration and healing are possible not through wishful thinking, but through Stoic practice. Stoic practice is one of the most profound gifts philosophy gives to humanity. It is learned, disciplined, and unlimited. Seneca reminds us, "Philosophy is no trick to catch the public. It is not devised for show. It is a matter not of words but of facts." This same practice that trains us for life's challenges also restores and heals us from the wounds inflicted by others. Stoic practice doesn't just mend, it transforms it, takes what was meant for harm and turns it into an opportunity for growth, reminding us that every obstacle is also an opportunity when dealing with the aftermath of a narcissist's actions. The first step toward restoration is acknowledging the pain. Many people who have been manipulated or manipulated tend to believe that they have undid their damage or have done right. This hurt is merely a part of hurt by narcissists struggle with feelings of shame or self-blame. They wonder, how did I not see this? Why didn't I protect myself? But the truth is, no one is prepared for the level of deception and emotional damage narcissists can cause. Stoicism doesn't ask us to bury that pain. Instead, it invites us to face it directly. Marcus Aurelius declares, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." Healing begins when we allow Stoicism to meet us in our brokenness and remind us that we are not defined by what has been done to us. Another crucial step in restoration is the practice of indifference. Indifference is often misunderstood. It is not feeling nothing or not caring. Rather, it is recognizing what is and isn't within our control. Epictetus encourages us, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Indifference to externals is for us. It is an act of wisdom that frees us from the emotional chains the narcissist's actions may have placed on our lives. Stoic practice also empowers us to rebuild our sense of identity. Narcissists often work to undermine their victim's self-worth, creating a sense of dependency or doubt. But philosophy reminds us who we are in ourselves. We are rational beings capable of virtue, created with dignity and value. Marcus Aurelius says, "Be like the promontory against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." Restoring our identity means rejecting the lies the narcissists may have spoken over us and embracing the truth of who philosophy says we are. Healing through Stoic practice also involves setting boundaries. While indifference to externals is essential, reconciliation is not always possible or wise. Some narcissists remain unrepentant, refusing to change their behavior or acknowledge their wrongdoing. In such cases, Stoic practice helps us to establish healthy boundaries that protect our peace and well-being. Epictetus advises, if you want to improve, begin by accepting the way things are. Guarding our heart means recognizing that we are not called to be doormats or to allow others to continually harm us. Instead, we trust reason to guide us in creating space where we can heal and grow. Community is another powerful agent of restoration. Narcissists often isolate their victims, making them feel alone and unsupported. But philosophy created us for ethical relationships, not the kind of toxic relationships narcissists cultivate, but relationships rooted in virtue, trust, and mutual respect, Seneca urges us. Letters of friendship that would admit us to real intimacy surround us. Surrounding ourselves with a supportive community of philosophers can provide encouragement, accountability, and a reminder that we are not alone in our journey of healing. One of the most beautiful aspects of restoration is how Stoicism uses our pain for a greater purpose. The scars left by narcissistic behavior can become testimonies of philosophical resilience. Marcus Aurelius says, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." As we heal, philosophy often opens doors for us to support others who are walking similar paths, transforming our pain into a source of hope and strength for others. Restoration also means embracing the tranquility and peace that Stoicism promises after enduring the chaos and turmoil caused by a narcissist. It can be difficult to believe that tranquility is possible, but Seneca reminds us, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Philosophy doesn't just patch up our wounds, it fills us with its peace, a peace that comes from reasoned choice. Moral clarity becomes our strength, enabling us to live fully and freely, no longer bound by the past. Finally, restoration through Stoic practice reminds us that nature's justice is perfect. While it's natural to want to see the narcissist face the consequences of their actions, true healing comes from trusting that reason sees all and will act in its timing. Seneca tells us, "He who spares the wicked harms the good." By releasing our need for revenge, we free ourselves to focus on our healing and the future. Philosophy has for us, ladies and gentlemen, restoration and healing are not just possible, they are promised. Stoic practice is more than sufficient to mend the deepest wounds, restore the most shattered identities, and bring beauty from ashes. Marcus Aurelius captures this promise. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. If you are carrying the weight of hurt caused by a narcissist, let me encourage you today. Give it to philosophy trust. It's practice to do what you cannot. It is the philosophy of restoration, the healer of broken minds and the transformer of every painful experience. Through its practice, you can not only heal but also thrive, stepping into the fullness of the life it has prepared for you. In the end, restoration isn't just about repairing what was broken, it's about creating something new. Stoic practice doesn't just restore, it transforms, making us stronger, wiser, and more rooted in philosophical truth than ever before. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the ultimate victory over the pain and manipulation inflicted by narcissists. Let Stoic practice lead you into that victory today.